In this episode, we're going to connect privacy work to one of the most stressful moments an organization can face, an incident. An incident is any event that disrupts normal operations or creates risk, and in privacy terms it often involves personal information being exposed, accessed improperly, altered, lost, or used in a way that was not intended. Incident management is the coordinated process of detecting what happened, containing the situation, understanding impact, communicating appropriately, and fixing root causes so it does not happen again. For brand new learners, the most important shift is understanding that privacy is not only about preventing problems ahead of time. It is also about responding well when something goes wrong, because the quality of the response can either reduce harm or magnify it. Privacy impacts include not just whether data was taken, but how people might be affected, whether they need to take protective actions, and whether the organization's promises were broken. Participating in incident management means bringing a privacy lens into fast-moving decisions so the organization can protect individuals and drive remediation with evidence, not guesswork. A privacy lens in incident management starts with recognizing that incidents have stages and different privacy decisions matter at each stage. Early on, the focus is detection and containment, because stopping the bleeding reduces harm and preserves evidence. Next comes analysis, where the team figures out what data was involved, how the incident occurred, and what the scope is, including how many people may be affected. Then comes communication, which includes internal leadership updates and, when required, notifications to affected individuals and regulators. Finally comes remediation and learning, where the organization fixes weaknesses, improves controls, and updates procedures so the same failure pattern does not repeat. Privacy participation is valuable at every stage because privacy teams help define what counts as personal information, which impacts are significant, what obligations apply, and how to communicate in a way that is accurate and respectful. A common beginner misconception is that privacy enters only at the end to draft notices, but that is too late to influence key choices that shape harm. Strong privacy incident participation begins early, while facts are still emerging. During the earliest stage, containment often involves urgent actions like disabling access, isolating systems, or pausing a feature, and privacy helps ensure these actions account for personal information pathways. For example, if an incident involves unauthorized access, privacy can help identify which systems contain the most sensitive personal information and therefore need priority containment. If the incident involves misdirected disclosures, such as information sent to the wrong recipient, privacy can help focus response on stopping further disclosures and retrieving or limiting the spread when possible. Privacy also helps teams avoid containment actions that create new privacy issues, such as copying large datasets to unsecured locations for analysis under pressure. In fast-moving situations, teams may take shortcuts to move quickly, and privacy participation helps guide those shortcuts towards safer options. This is not about slowing response. It is about preventing response actions from increasing exposure. A well-integrated incident process makes privacy input part of speed, not an obstacle to it. Once containment stabilizes the situation, the next step is scoping, and scoping is where privacy impact analysis becomes concrete. Scoping asks what happened, how it happened, what personal information was involved, and whose data was affected. Privacy participation helps ensure the team looks beyond obvious records, because personal information can also exist in logs, exports, analytics systems, support tools, and vendor environments. Scoping also includes distinguishing between exposure and confirmed misuse, because the difference affects how you assess risk to individuals. For example, data may have been accessible but not necessarily exfiltrated, or it may have been copied internally by an authorized user for an unauthorized purpose. Privacy teams help interpret these scenarios in terms of likely harm and required next steps. Another scoping challenge is understanding what identifiers were exposed, because some data elements enable direct harm like identity theft, while others create more indirect harms like embarrassment or discrimination. A rigorous scope builds the foundation for accurate decisions rather than panic-driven assumptions. Privacy impact analysis during incidents should consider harm to individuals in a structured way, because harm is more than a headline about data leaked. Think about what a malicious actor could do with the data, what a mistaken disclosure could trigger, and what the person might need to know to protect themselves. Some impacts are immediate, such as exposure of account credentials or financial details that enable fraud quickly. Some impacts are longer term, such as exposure of sensitive life details that could lead to discrimination or harassment later. Some impacts are situational, such as disclosure of a home address for someone at risk, where the same data has different consequences for different individuals. Privacy teams also consider psychological and dignity harms, because people can feel violated when private details are revealed even if financial loss does not occur. By articulating impact clearly, privacy participation helps the organization decide what actions are justified, such as enhanced monitoring, offering protective support, or taking stronger remediation steps. This framing also helps leadership understand that privacy incidents are not only technical failures, but human impact events. Communication is one of the highest risk parts of incident management, and privacy participation helps ensure communications are accurate, appropriate, and aligned with obligations and expectations. Poor communication can create additional harm, either by misleading people, minimizing the issue, or providing vague statements that cause confusion. Privacy teams help determine what information should be shared, when it should be shared, and how to describe the incident without speculation. They also help ensure that notifications focus on what matters to the individual, such as what data was involved, what the organization is doing, and what steps the person can take if any are needed. Privacy participation can also guide internal communications so leaders receive clear summaries that distinguish known facts from open questions. Another important element is consistency, because different teams may communicate differently unless there is a coordinated approach. When communication is handled well, people feel respected and informed, and the organization reduces the chance of mistrust becoming a second crisis. When communication is handled poorly, the incident can evolve into a reputational event even if the technical scope is limited. Incident management also requires decision-making under uncertainty, and privacy participation helps keep those decisions defensible. Early in an incident, you rarely have complete information, so teams must make choices based on preliminary evidence. Privacy teams can help define thresholds for action, such as when to notify leaders, when to involve legal and regulators, and when to notify individuals. They can also help document assumptions and decision rationale, which becomes important later when questions arise about timing and judgment. A defensible approach does not mean waiting for perfect clarity. It means making reasonable decisions with the information available, updating decisions as new facts appear, and keeping a clear record of why actions were taken. This record protects the organization and also supports learning, because it shows where information gaps slowed response or led to confusion. For beginners, it is useful to see documentation as part of care, not bureaucracy, because it supports accountability and improvement. Driving remediation is where privacy participation can create long-term value, because the goal is not just to recover from the incident, but to reduce the chance of recurrence. Remediation starts with root cause analysis, which asks why the incident was possible, not just what happened. A privacy lens helps ensure root cause analysis considers privacy-specific weaknesses like excessive access, unclear procedures, weak retention practices, lack of minimization, and insufficient vendor oversight. For example, if the incident involved an exported dataset that was mishandled, the root cause might be that teams had no safe, approved method for analytics, pushing them into ad hoc exports. If the incident involved an insider misusing access, the root cause might include overly broad permissions and insufficient monitoring of access to sensitive records. Remediation then becomes both technical and operational, such as tightening access roles, improving logging, updating manuals, and clarifying approval gates. Privacy participation helps prioritize fixes based on human impact and accountability, not only on technical convenience. Another key aspect of remediation is ensuring the organization learns from the incident in a way that improves the privacy program broadly. This includes updating risk assessments, improving PIAs, refining data classification guidance, and adjusting retention and deletion practices if data was exposed that should not have been kept. It can also include improving training, especially role-specific training for teams involved in the incident, such as support staff or engineers handling logs. Privacy participation also helps ensure that fixes are validated, meaning the organization confirms the control changes actually work and are followed. Too often, organizations declare remediation complete when a ticket is closed, even though behavior and system patterns remain unchanged. Validation is essential because privacy incidents often reveal systemic issues rather than isolated mistakes. When privacy teams help drive validation, the organization gains confidence that it is actually safer, not just temporarily quieter. Incidents often involve vendors, and privacy participation must account for the shared responsibility reality. If a vendor was involved, privacy teams help ensure the vendor provides needed information, meets notification obligations, and supports remediation steps such as deletion, access changes, or process updates. Privacy teams also help evaluate whether the incident changes the risk acceptance of the vendor relationship, which could lead to stronger monitoring, renegotiated terms, or in some cases replacement. Vendor involvement also complicates communication and evidence, because the organization may depend on the vendor for logs and timelines. This is where good vendor governance pays off, because contracts and monitoring expectations can determine how quickly and accurately the organization can respond. For beginners, it is important to understand that privacy incident response often crosses organizational boundaries, so coordination and documentation become even more critical. A privacy professional's role is to keep the focus on protecting individuals while coordinating the obligations and realities across parties. As we close, remember that participating in incident management is a core privacy skill because privacy incidents are moments when trust can be lost quickly and harm can spread fast. Privacy participation starts early by helping containment prioritize personal information pathways and by preventing response actions from creating new exposure. It strengthens scoping by ensuring the team understands data flows, data types, and who is affected, including less obvious systems and copies. It clarifies impact by focusing on realistic harm to individuals, not only on technical definitions. It improves communication by keeping messages accurate, respectful, and aligned with obligations and expectations, even when facts are still emerging. Finally, it drives remediation by connecting root causes to both technical and operational controls, validating fixes, and feeding lessons back into the privacy program. Task 10 matters because it teaches you to bring calm, structured privacy thinking into the most chaotic moments, so the organization responds with accountability and people are protected as much as possible.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.